Imagine putting your best ideas out into the world and having the world help them make you better. Imagine an atmosphere where every person in the audience hangs on every word you say with the same amount of passion as the person saying those words. Imagine the opportunity to give your work the platform to excel and the opportunity it deserves. A very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to TEDx Youth at JNS. The TEDx journey is a fascinating one which began with obtaining a license from TED itself. Today, one TEDx event happens every day in 133 countries across the world, and Jamnabai is now an integral part of this awe-inspiring experience. It gives me great pleasure in welcoming all our esteemed speakers and dignitaries for the day. Our speakers, Mr. Rajendra Halve, Ms. Harnit Kaul, Mr. Shlok Paul, and Mr. Parashar Baruga. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for our speakers. Our dignitaries, Senior Advisor, Mrs. Vaz, Head International School, Ms. Jasmine Ladani, Principal, Mr. Deshna Chatterjee, Principal of Gift City School, Ms. Kavita Bajpai, IBDP Coordinator, Sri Lakshmi Murthy, Assistant IBDP Coordinator, Ms. Moshmi Basu, Vice Principal, Ms. Zina Bojaboy, ISC Assistant Coordinator and Coordinators, Ms. Roslyn Atayed and Kalpana Patange, Headmistresses, Ms. Rekha Nair, Ms. Maria De Silva and Ms. Naz Lokandwala, Senior Manager, Mr. Gurnam Singh, Manager, Mr. Sanjay Lal, IBDP Group Heads, Teachers, and of course our dear audience. I would like to go over the ground rules before we proceed. All phones must remain switched off throughout this event. There will be no talking while the speakers are speaking, no photography will be permitted, and you are not permitted to leave this auditorium until the TEDx event has completed in its entirety. Without further ado, let's move on to our first speaker. Mr. Raj Halve is currently operating partner at Samara Capital, a private equity firm, and has held CXO level jobs for the past 10 years. 28 years of experience have seen him working with companies such as British American Tobacco, Titan, Lynch's Advertising, Reliance Telecom, and GoAir. He also was a gold medalist throughout his academic career. I would like to call upon Sanat Khurana, Einstein House representative, Lamya Sagarwala, IC representative, and Janvi Kocha, IBDP representative, to felicitate Mr. Rajendra Halve with a floral tribute and a token of our appreciation. Ladies and gentlemen, let's have a round of applause for Mr. Rajendra Halve.
Good afternoon. This presentation is, I saw other speakers' presentation topics. Compared to them, this is a fairly simple presentation. It's not about anything great. It's about my journey in life and what I've learned from it. But most importantly, it's not about a formula that I'm going to share with you or some deep insight. It's things which I picked up over the years, which I believe make life more interesting, happier, and more meaningful. So this presentation is all about you as students. It's about what I believe you should start doing from today and the way you look at life going forward. So I'm not going to talk to you about what you should study, but I'm sure there are enough people who are telling you what you should be doing in life. How you should study, not my area. Where you should work, what kind of career you should do. That's not what this is about. This is about my tips, but how I believe you should live your life. Right? The biggest truth I learned over the last 28 years of working is that there is no formula to success. If there was, you would just control C and control B and we would all be happy and successful. So there is obviously something that makes some people successful and happy, and some people not so successful and not so happy. I think first, and I'll touch on this point as we go through, is defining success properly. The way you define it most times determines whether you will succeed or not. 4 photographs, all of you know him. Very rich man, changed the way we compute. Probably the biggest, best investor, the Oracle of Omaha, and one of the greatest philanthropists the world has ever seen. Bertrand Russell, probably the only person who was, I think, nominated for the Nobel Prize in 2 different subjects. One was mathematics and second was literature. And of course, Steve Jobs, who made us, all of us spend lots of money on mobile phones. But what is common with diverse backgrounds, completely different educational systems. Some of them are dropouts, some are brilliant. So unlike what some people say, just being a dropout does not mean you succeed in life. So what's common? And not just these people. All the people that I've seen in my life who are successful, who are genuinely happy with them, is that they have passion. Okay, I will share a couple of genuine instances. There's a couple I met, very young, they must be 30, 32 now. I met them 8 or 9 years ago and they just got married. And their passion was travel. That's all they wanted to do, travel. So they started off by organizing a small group every Sunday where people would share their experiences of traveling with each other. Today they are a highly successful couple. I envy them to death because I see them one month they are in Oman learning to dive, the other month they are climbing up Machu Picchu in Latin America, the third they are exploring the ruins in Eastern Europe. They took that passion and made something about it, which is their lifetime. Did they start off by saying let's make money? No. They said, I want to do something that I am passionate about, and that is about traveling and seeing the world. And as a byproduct, yes, we will also make money, but we will also make money. It's not about living life to make money. Right? It's like getting up every morning and saying, I will top the class, or I will top the university, or whatever. That by itself is not even a goal. If you start off everything by saying, I want to know, I'm genuinely interested in this, I'm passionate about it, the results follow. There are another example of a girl I know who is 27. At the age of 17, her father gave her a camera. And she went around taking photographs in the neighborhood and realized that that was her passion. So she finished schooling, as the way everyone does, set up her own studio for commercial photography at the age of 23. Her name is Shraddha Kadakia. She's probably one of the highest paid photographers today in India. But the most beautiful thing is not that she succeeds in doing what she does. She gets up every morning and loves what she does. The great thing is that things like stress, things like, oh my God, I have to get up on a Monday morning and go to work. None of these people feel that. But they are doing what they wish to do. That is what their life is. Imagine you can choose at your age, you can choose to either live a life of drudgery, where every morning you wake up and say, why am I doing this? Just because at the end of the month I get a paycheck. There's a colleague of yours, a friend, who doesn't earn that kind of money. He probably earns one third of what you do. But he wakes up every morning and feels happy. Wow, another day. So, passion is something I would encourage you deeply to find something that you're passionate about. It could be anything. And I've talked about how to find passion. What I'm going to say is will not be very supported very well by teachers and parents. But the fact is you have only one life. To live your own life. There is a very common thing amongst parents that we need to vicariously through our children. I will not do this, so I make my child do this. Or reverse. I did this and I was successful, so he or she must also do this. My view on this is that every one of you is unique. You guys, my first slide was all about you. If you are unique, obviously your road to success and happiness and just joy is very different from anyone else's. So live your own life. Therefore, listen carefully. Listen to your teacher, listen to your friend, listen to your neighbor, listen to everyone. But don't follow necessarily. You are intelligent. And I believe through this work, even at young ages, you are all very mature. You can decide what you wish to do. Don't just follow blindly. Because you are living your life, not someone else's. At the age of 55, you turn around and tell yourself, oh my God, I could have done so much better. I could have done something else which I really enjoyed. And by the way, I need to become a chartered accountant with my dad was there. That's a dumb way of living life. Let money be your byproduct. If you asked Steve Jobs the day he started Apple, do you really want to just make tons of money? When he started Pixar animation, was his goal to say, okay, I'll make it a multi-billion-dollar business? No. It was, I want to create the best animated films in the world. If I do that, I will become any business or any profession you take, whether it's a doctor, an engineer, a scientist, a photographer, an actress, a model, doesn't matter. Top 2% of people in any profession make money. The rest language. The only difference is the medium. Right? An average doctor may make more money than an average photographer. But if you excel at what you do, and the excellence comes from passion, then money will come. It's a fact. It will happen. Therefore, as I'm saying, define success for yourself. And at the cost of repeating ad nauseam, do not think money equals success. Discovering your passion. How do you discover it? The number of people I have met over the last couple of decades, very few know what their passion is. Right? So, what is passion? Well, Steve Jobs wanted to do this. I don't know what I want to do. I just follow the path everyone is following. How many times do people make this statement? You ask them, why do you do this? They say, well, because everyone else is doing it. That's it. Terrible reason to do anything, whether good or bad. So how do you discover your passion? You're not, let's imagine a life that you study during the day, in the evening, do whatever, meet some friends, have dinner with your parents, go to sleep. On weekends, go out to a mall, see a couple of movies with your friends, and on vacation, you go to Goa or wherever. How will you discover that? You have to allow yourself experiences and different types of people. If you wish to explore life and explore what is it that can make you passionate, or will inspire that passion, go spelunking on a weekend. Try skydiving. Go learn scuba diving. Learn yoga. Do whatever. Try new things. Learn salsa. Then unless you try, how will you do? I learned photography at the age of 40. I learned the piano at the age of 45. So I didn't have the opportunity to learn. But now I love music. I love photography. I love travel. It's because I allow myself. My sincere request to all of you, and which I make my son do, is to try a new activity once in a while. Please. Don't just do the same thing. And meet diverse people. If you go hiking in the Uttarakhand, the people you will meet are very different from the people you will meet in the group. Fundamentally, they come from different backgrounds, different mindsets. And that is what allows you to open your mind. Meeting the same people doing the same thing, tragically. Everyone talks about morals and values. My view is that at a young age, there are some innately core values in all of us. And I would recommend and suggest that spend some time thinking about it and write down what are those core values that mean something to you. Very important to you. And remember, any value model is testable. So let me get it an example. I will be honest. I will never tell a lie. I am not saying that's a good value or a bad value. Suppose that is good value. It is easily testable. If you say, oh my God, had I told the truth, my teacher would have not upset. That's not a value. The value is a value that you stand by it, even though the consequences of it may not be immediately good for you. Right? So stick to those core values, but they make life easier, decision making easier. You make choices much easier. Use common sense. And be ambitious. When I say be ambitious, be truly ambitious. Right? Ambition is not earning a check at the end of the month and buying a car, fancy car, and moving around. Truly ambitious is saying, this passion is mine, this one thing that I want. I'm going to be among the top 3 people in India. I'm not going to stop you like excel. That is flirting around with something and thinking, this is my what I want to do. That's not actual ambition, and being ambitious. I can't summarize it, I don't like to speak too much. First is learn and listen. Listen to everyone. Read a lot, learn. Learn from experience. Expose yourself to this experience. Never fear a new idea, or something that you have not thought of, or that is completely unique in your friend circle. Different ideas is what makes you unique. So, excel in your uniqueness. If you have a unique idea, that means there is something good. If often there is a saying that everyone in this office is not going to. Everyone thinks the same, that no one is different. So the uniqueness of each individual comes because they have different ideas. So learn to live, celebrate your own ideas. Stick to your values. If you don't want to live a life which in retrospect, at some point in your life, you say what a wasted one. I did not stick to what I feel like my core values. So define them, articulate them if you can, and stick to them. And finally, the last point that I want to make is enjoy excellence across the world, not just in India. The most common phrase is "it's good enough." That's a terrible way to be. If you take a photograph, of course it's good enough, unless you completely out of focus. But if you want to excel, it's like getting 95% in an exam. That's very easy. Go to 95 to 99 where the 3 years stretched up. And that's where the fun. That's where you really know you're excelling. So whether it's, I don't know, piano, whether it's a chartered accountancy exam, excellence and saying just good enough is not good enough. I'm going to make something. I'm going to excel. If you do that, I promise you, whatever you do, you'll be very successful, you'll be happy, you'll be content. And yes, you will also make some money to pay. To summarize, live. It's your life, don't let anyone tell you otherwise. You are unique, live it, be happy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Halde, for that advice that will definitely hold us in good stead during our careers. Our next speaker has worked on world-famous documentaries such as Superheroes of Malegaon and is currently working on another one called The Best of Dharavi, based on his project Artifacting Dharavi. He has been an established cinematographer and filmmaker and is here to talk to us about his experiences on these unique and inspiring projects. I now call upon the Student Council to felicitate Mr. Parashar Barua with a token of our appreciation and a floral bouquet. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. It is my privilege to welcome Mr. Parashar Barua to the stage.
Give us a minute, please. Hi. Good afternoon, and thank you very much for having me here. May I get the other mic, please? You know what? May I get the other mic, please? Hi. Well, thank you, Raj, for practically telling me how I live my life, and this is pretty much how I try to live my life. And passion, I love photography. That I made it my profession. Every day I enjoy what I do. I travel. I love traveling, and I love food. I guess it shows. Well, anyway, so I do have a few images, but that won't keep us from starting what I have to say. I am from Dibrugarh in Assam, tea country, you know, and I've been living in Bombay for the past 14 years now. working as a filmmaker. So maybe that's how when we began the Dharavi project, I didn't have the preconceived notion about Dharavi. I wasn't colored by the dynamics of the city. And I literally walked into Dharavi. And that's how we started the project. We just made a connect. And today we are talking about, I'll try to talk about the disconnect that we live in and the connections that we're trying to make and we're trying to make. And yeah, so Dharavi is the poster boy of slums in Mumbai, and it's always been depicted in popular culture as something which is, is the other side. We don't go there, it's just a backdrop for, the chase sequence or the illegal liquor or, the bad guys. But that's not always true. Unfortunately, what has happened was, when we began the project, our friends, people who we were working with, people from Bombay, they used to ask us to take them for tours to Dharavi. And I found that very amusing. I said, it's just another part of your city. Just go there, Mahim Station, East, and that's Dharavi for you. So the notion of Dharavi was actually something else. I don't know how many of you know Dharavi actually. And how many of you have been to Dharavi? Awesome, we have a few here who have been to Dharavi, and thank you very much for that. So today it's about only connect. And that's pretty much how I've lived my life. About finding connections and making those connections, and that is the only way I can understand life and people around me. And that's pretty much what I want to share with you. So we started the Dharavi project with the simplest of motives, to empower the invisible waste management people in our city. People who collect our waste, people who pick up the garbage from our homes, but people who we don't know. So it's about the invisible man with the gunny bag who's walking away from us. That's pretty much all we know about the waste collector in the city. And there are more than 400,000 people like them working in the city today. So the idea about the Dharavi project was to add the fourth R, reduce, reuse, recycle, and respect. We don't have to patronize them. We don't have to change what they do. We just have to respect them for what they do. And those reluctant environmentalists, those people who don't even know what they're doing, but they're making a huge impact in the city's environment and the ecology of the city. So that's how we started. And so that's how we did, and I went on to make my own documentary film called Waste. It's about these three practical kids who make a living out of waste. And one of them has said that अगर हम लोग एक दिन काम नहीं करेंगे तो पूरी Bombay कचरा हो जाएगी. But pretty much that's how it was. But anyway, so coming straight from there to the artifacting Mumbai project that happened in 2010-11. So basically, I'd like to show you a small video before that. It's about how we see Dharavi and what we started seeing Dharavi as right now. Audio, can you have the audio please? It's okay. That's okay. Visuals are good enough. Okay, this is how I saw Dharavi. This is what I produced actually in 2010. Just a series of images and people that I came in contact. This is primarily from the 13 compound, which is also the recycling hub of Dharavi. And you pretty much find everything under the sky there that's getting recycled. So, in the latter part of 2010, when the team from Artifacting got in touch with us in Dharavi project, and they wanted to do a 3-month residency in Dharavi, where they wanted to engage with the communities there and try to excavate ideas, art, collaborate with local artists, collaborate with local, organizations. That's how we came into picture. And what happened was, we try to engage with the communities in Dharavi, the recycling communities, and these artists, photographers, filmmakers, people like us, we got together and we tried to just have a dialogue. And the idea was that through the process of those 3 months, try to find out something, an understanding which was not so much profound as finding about the issues of Dharavi or about housing or about class divide, but just finding out about human connections, about human personal stories. And that's what I was personally always motivated by, that you should be making human connections. That we look at the world around us, and we have to get out of our comfort zones and familiar, comfortable environment and engage with the other side. It's as simple as that. Only through dialogue can we achieve any understanding. And that's what E.M. Foster has said, that we need to only connect. And that's what I've lived by, only connect. So that's what I would like to mention as an interesting story. A story about personal histories that we try to excavate in Dharavi. So this story is about Mr. Sirish Jani. So Mr. Sirish Jani, I'll just have to read out because okay, so Mr. Sirish Jani is a story worth remembering from this. He's a second-generation paper recycler in Dharavi and produced paper from all sources and from all parts of the world to recycling. But what we found out was that the unique hobby that he has developed since he was a kid, hanging out with his father's godown, looking through paper that had come in. And he had a hobby of collecting letters, postcards, and any interesting paper products that he could discover there. So over the last 3 or 4 decades, he has compiled a collection of letters and postcards from all over the world. Postcards sent by a Marine soldier to his sister inquiring about a distant uncle. Letters exchanged between friends from Pakistan and India just after the partition. Now isn't that fascinating? It's basically we have discovered a whole series of history written through waste. Discovered through waste. So that was one of the most memorable finds that we had of this whole collection of postcards and letters written from different places of the world, which tells us about the history of the world over the last 40 years through a different perspective. So that's something that I can always take back from the Artifacting project. So as Mr. Halve has mentioned about the idea, or the power of the idea, that's pretty much the second thing I wanted to talk about. It's about the sheer audacity of an idea. I think that changes the world. Every good idea starts with an audacious idea. An idea where friends, everyone will say, what? Your idea is impossible. It's weird. You need to be audacious. That's how you should. Any big idea has to be an audacious idea. And that's exactly the audacious idea we had as a group in trying to do an art project in Dharavi. In trying to do a project inside the so-called slum. I never consider Dharavi a slum because it's a very, very industrious area. It's not a slum. So that's the idea we had. So we had an audacious idea, and it was a very fun ride. We ran into obstacles, we ran into a lot of objection from the locals. And the first question they would ask us, what do you get out of it? You know, what do you gain out of this? And that's an answer even I don't have, even now. So I ask you, what do we gain out of such things? I ask each and every one of you, what did you gain out of it? What do you gain out when you go out and do something which is not money in your pocket? So it's intangible, it's something that we don't understand. But it's probably an artistic satisfaction, it's just a personal fulfillment that we feel. That's it. I guess it's a life story you learn. It's one of the many life stories that you put down in your diary. And maybe you become a better person out of that. And that's what we try to do. So after that process, the most valuable result of find that I can talk about from this audacious project is that we found artists, we found workers, we found stories, we found histories from a community that was never recognized. So we found collaborators in the most unexpected places. The mantra "only connect," led us to a whole world of collaborators. And so this audacious idea, I'm coming towards the end of what I have to say. This audacious idea also made us bring the biggest artist to Dharavi. The biggest Indian-born artist in the world today, Mr. Anish Kapoor, came to Dharavi. He is inspired. He was recycled. He was reinterpreted. But he came to Dharavi. This was in 2010 when we were showing in Bombay, and his big art exhibition was happening at the Mehboob studio. And interestingly, Mr. Shirish again comes to the picture. The waste from his art exhibition started ending up in Dharavi. For those of you who know, or I want you to look it up, Mr. Kapoor has an art installation called Shooting into the Corner. It's a huge installation of a cannon, shooting a wax cannonball into a corner. And the idea was that it signifies violence, it signifies the destruction, it signifies war. So what happened was these canisters started ending up in Mr. Shirish's recycling hub. And these workers were handling high art without knowing about it. They were looking at canisters as just a material for them to recycle. Whereas we saw them as art in the most incongruous of places. So there's a connect in a disconnect. It's when you put something out of its context and put it somewhere else, it has many meanings. We talks about the overall disconnect right from Bandra to Dharavi, which is just half a kilometer away. It also talks about a disconnect between Bandra and Dharavi in terms of the people who live there. So that is the disconnect that we wanted to work with. So what we did was we got the organizers of Anish Kapoor's show to allow us to take our kids there. These are kids from the Dharavi project, children who are rat pickers, who go to school but also are primarily involved with waste management or waste collection. So they went and saw this exhibition. And the organizers and Mr. Anish Kapoor himself was thrilled by the idea of what we were trying to do. And he allowed us to use all the discards from his exhibition. So on the 29th, when we had our art exhibition within Dharavi, we used this material and we made the beehive. So the beehive is this. This was made out of the wax canisters that we found at Mr. Anish Kapoor's exhibition. It was used as an audio-visual art installation where people could walk into it and they could experience the sounds of Dharavi. they could experience the video of Dharavi within this space. This was later auctioned off to an art gallery in India itself. So yeah, out of waste. I'm happy to say that we made this out of waste. We got Anish Kapoor and his material to come to Dharavi. It got us a lot of press, but it also enforced or kind of strengthened the idea, that art is everywhere. You just need to find out how to bring the context. So this is the other mural that we did in Dharavi. And at least we managed to put this on Google. If you Google Dharavi now, this is one of the first images that you'll find. This is just a mural that we painted. It says welcome, and it says welcome to Dharavi. That's the context. So yeah, pretty much an audacious idea with human connections made the 13-component exhibition a unique experience. We got a lot of people from the High Art Society in Bombay to walk through Dharavi. People who just look down on Dharavi, otherwise calling it a slum, but they walked through Dharavi because, not just because Mr. Anish Kapoor was showing there, but also because this bunch of so-called collaborative artists managed to turn a half-a-kilometer stretch within Dharavi into an artwork. We had video, we had photography, we had people. We were showing material that was produced through collaboration with people from Dharavi and produced by people who have had made name up in the art world. So that was what we did. And it also, the finding or the results that we had out of this was not just convincing the people outside of Dharavi that, okay, this is what we did, but people within Dharavi, people who were skeptical about what we were trying to do there. They saw what was happening. They saw people walk into their godowns and interact with them and treat them as artists. So that kind of gave them an interesting, that was an interesting find for us. It was an interesting, insight into how they felt interacting and becoming artists. So that was the other thing. It was a very audacious idea, and we did connect people from different parts of the world into this one core idea of creating something, collaborating on something. And it was not the process, or it was rather not the quality of the art that was produced, but it was the process of getting there, which is important, which again about these core values of passions, of idea, of the fact that you need to connect and get the stories out from these people, and in the process also make your own story. So that's pretty much it. This is what we did. I'll show you a short video and then I'll just wrap it up. This is one of the art pieces we did. Sorry, this piece is called The Computer Man, and it is an attempt to humanize the machine, or it talks about the story of a machine and what happens to him in Dharavi. Thank you very much.
taking time to walk down the aisle, turning over every stone, building heroes but still haven't learned to. Please don't let me down this time. I've come a long way to just fall back into.
Okay, so maybe we're just hoping it reincarnated as an IMAX somewhere. So this is the last presentation, and I'm pretty much done. So this was the exhibition experience. We have murals, we have video art. So, just to end it, I mean, maybe it was just a one-off experience about the Artifact in Mumbai project, but I guess the findings or how I live my life or how I think we should live our life are these universal, ideas of connections, of knowing people about each other and kind of moving forward, aware of what we do in our surroundings. Otherwise, we should not live in this cocoon, this disconnect of, that we're only concerned about what is us and what we are concerned about what is around us, because that is exactly the beginning of disruption. This is exactly the beginning of what's happening today. We need to find connections, human connections, not an internet, not an email, but an actual human connection in whichever way. And that leads to expressions, that leads to stories, that leads to, personality building, I guess. So thank you very much. And I'm making a film on Dharagi Rocks. Please look up Dharagi Rocks. We have a bunch of kids who play music and they're rocking. So that's another talk some other day. Thank you very much for having me here. I hope that made sense. Thank you very much.
Next up, we have Ms. Harneet Kaur, a history student at LSR College, Delhi University, who hopes to continue further studies in international relations. She is a literature and food aficionado, and also an avid debater, writer, and slam poet. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Ms. Harneet Kaur.
And you got an extremely fancy introduction to me thanks to the lovely organizing committee. But I'm going to be very honest with you here. I'm Harneet Kaur and I'm a 19-year-old nobody. I'm serious. Now, I haven't invented anything. I haven't gone ahead and saved lives. I think I might have killed a couple of people somewhere in between, but I am not an inventor of any sort. So then why exactly am I standing up here in front of you trying to inspire you? debate and a discussion on something we do as humans, and it brings us all together at a very basic level. Right, so when they told you about what I do, which I do sometimes, what's the main theme here? I write poetry, I debate, I MUN. What I do is use creativity. Now, the problem with using creativity is that when I go ahead and work in a paradigm with creative people, I get disillusioned very, very fast. Now, what this disillusionment leads to is realizations. And one realization that I came to very early on was that the concept of creativity itself has gotten connotations that detract from what it's supposed to be. Now, I'll give you a personal example here. My mom's in the audience. Hi, Mom. I was sitting at home and guests came over. And she said, well, my daughter likes poetry. The guest turned to me with a sneer on her face and said, oh, she must be very creative. Now, where does that condescension, that sneer, that derision stem from? It stems from a very firmly held misconception. And what is that misconception? That creativity as a concept is lazy. Creative people are seen as people who are not hardworking because they take an innate ability and simply use it to avoid the work that they should be doing. Creativity unto itself is seen as an easy way out. This of course disturbed me. I mean, I'm a creative person. I'm pretty sure a lot of you think you're creative, right? And this was compounded by a piece I wrote a couple of months ago. I write poetry, I put it up on my blog, and a lot of people read it. And the aim of what I write is to spark off discussion on the way again. Now, this piece is called The Thief. I write, I proclaim arrogantly, because I do, and I create worlds with my words. But beneath this arrogance and this pride and these facades lies a simple fear, one so small that it should go and hide under all the worlds I can create and all the parallel lines I can draw that lead like the inside of your mind. But this fear still gnaws and it still stings. A fear that realizations will draw, that I steal the words and the emotions and the feelings that I produce. And the problem is that the person I steal from will never get them back because she's stealing. It's a very dramatic piece, very teenage angsty. And the reactions I got to this piece were really strange and disturbing. A person told me, I feel you. One person said, I know what you mean, I write with the shards of my soul. This is something very typical, very Tumblr, if you would let me say that. And it led to a realization that people have started taking creativity as a curse. Now this idea is bolstered by stalwarts like Bukowski and Platt. Creativity is seen as negativity. People draw from the negativity around them. Right? I mean, I'm sure if you've been on the internet, you've seen Platt, you've seen Bukowski, you've seen these poets talking about their inherent pain and sadness. So, what's the problem here? The problem is multifaceted. The people who should be fostering and incubating creativity go ahead and stomp it down because creativity is seen as an easy way out. And the people who should be using creativity in their everyday lives do so, however, in a paradigm that's separate from their reality. These are the two problems that I will talk about here. Can we change the system in the next 15 minutes I have on stage? Probably not. We're just students here. We have people who can help us change, but there's a limited amount of influence. Can we, however, have an honest, frank discussion about how we can use creativity in our everyday lives? Yes, we can. Why not? Alright, so this is a very silent room, and that really disconcerts me because I'm a slam poet, and in slam poetry, the way you show appreciation is to be loud. The audience is supposed to interact with the poet. So I'm going to be asking you questions in the middle of my speech, and I want you to reply. Scream out a reply, because that's going to allow me to take this debate further. Alright? Can I have you do that? right? And these sound very funny, which is why I'm going to explain to you why these constructs came up. The Oxford Dictionary itself defines creativity as the use of imagination or original ideas in the production, especially of artistic work. This definition is problematic one because it's open-ended. You can interpret it as you wish. But we're going to try and use this for our advantage. We're going to break this definition down with the next 4 constructs I explained to you. These constructs are the process of creativity, maintaining integrity of creativity, the journey of creativity, and the goal of identity. Firstly, the process of creativity. Like I said before, creativity is said to be lazy. And the reason this misconception exists is fairly simple to understand, honestly. It is understood in terms of inherent capability. Now, when you see the way society perceives someone who uses creativity in their core functioning in an everyday life, the way they are perceived is not very good. It is considered, kuch kaam nahi karta. Now, this is perception. But what happens when a person who is creative goes ahead and imbibes this perception? There's doubt. Should I be creating it? Is it worth creating? Now the problem here is that creativity as a core concept does not allow for doubt. It does not allow for you to rethink. You need to go ahead and simply create. Creativity is not comfortable. You're never going to find the right space, right time, right inspiration to create. You're going to have to go ahead and create irrespective of outside forces. The process of creativity itself hasn't changed from eons on. Population demographics, the way technology works, the way we interact might have changed, but that does not change what creativity stands for. Now, here, what we need to understand is that the core of creativity, having remained the same, shows what the problem is. The problem is the creators. We have lagged. We have decided that creativity is supposed to be comfortable. When you write, I write. When you write, you need to write every day, irrespective of whether you think you're writing well or not. When you create art, you create every single day in some capacity or the other, because you understand that the end goal isn't all that is there in creativity. It's about the process itself. The process grows every single day. There's a sense of consistency that goes ahead and allows you to capitalize on your creativity. Now this leads to another example here. Talent versus skill. These words have become interchangeable in our colloquialisms nowadays. But here's the problem. Talent can be inborn. What is skill? Skill is talent that is capitalized upon. You might not be the greatest artist on earth, but if you are working on your art every single day, what you have is consistency. I'll give you an example here about how creativity cannot be lazy. What's the bastion of hard work in our country? IITs. You have IIT coaching centers that have classes 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. And a band that was a bastion of creativity at one time, they were bigger than Jesus at one time, the Beatles. The Beatles broke something called a 10,000 hour rule, when they practiced 10,000 hours for one single set of 7 hours in Hamburg. What does this example go to prove? This example goes to prove that creativity inherently cannot be lazy. Creativity requires hard work. Creativity requires you to put yourself into it again and again, every single day, so that you bring some result out. This was construct 1. Now, coming down to the next construct. The integrity of creativity. What does integrity mean? To use a fairly simple definition that is popular enough for you to understand, it is a personal choice and an uncompromising and predictably consistent commitment to artistic moral principles. So what does integrity in creativity mean? Other than sounding really fancy, it actually does have a meaning behind it. I like fancy things, so yeah. Now, creativity needs to be independent of inspiration. It's especially important for people our age. We're at the cusp of what's called the real world, right? I mean, you're told every single day, it's the real world out there. Now you're in school, I'm in college. What you have is a very insulated environment, and in this environment, you're given inspiration every single day. It's thrust upon you. You're given ideas to work upon. All you have to do is go ahead and work on that. That's your job. Does this teach you how to use inspiration? Yes. But what it doesn't teach you is the fact that 6 months from now, a year from now, a year and a half from now, you're going to be thrust into an area where nobody has the time or the willingness or the ability to give you opportunities. Where does that leave you? That doesn't leave you anywhere. It is here where you have to realize that you will have to search for inner motivation to create. As bright creative people, you're students of prestigious school, you're going to go ahead and do something good with your life. You have a brilliant opportunity to start off with. You're going to be called upon to give creative solutions to everyday problems and your life itself. What do you do in such a case if you're not given inspiration? You just stop and say, hey, I don't know what to do here. You go ahead and find inner motivation. Now, moving on from here, this is a point that's slightly personal to me as someone who writes. I'm going to use a couple of words here. I'm going to rattle out a list here. When I finish, I want you to say the first word that comes to your mind as people who are on the internet and stuff like that. Cigarettes. The taste of you. Drowning. Save me. Cigarettes again. Save yourself. My skin. Your skin. Collarbones. Wine. Smoke. Melancholy. What do these words remind you of? That's right. Now, these words and the ideas they represent are something that I noticed a lot on platforms like Tumblr and Wattpad. Now, what is the problem with using these ideas again and again and again? The problem is stagnation. The problem is that the idea of melancholy and of sadness and of pain is something universal in nature. As teenagers, we are allowed our angst phase. So in this case, when you go ahead and take these words and these ideas and you create out of them, you get comfortable. Because people appreciate what you write. Because they think they understand what you write. However, here's the problem. Art shouldn't be comfortable. Creativity isn't comfortable. Creativity is supposed to make you think. Creativity is never ever easy. The point of being creative is to go ahead and voice what you want to say. If it's weird, if it's scary, if people think you're bonkers, that's the point. Art isn't supposed to be understandable. Art isn't supposed to be easily digestible. Art is supposed to make debate. Art is supposed to go ahead and create a paradigm in which you question the art itself. When you go ahead and stagnate with ideas and words, where does that leave you? It leaves you nowhere. You become a generation of people who are rehashing and repeating the same idea. Now, in an environment of pure validation, these easily accessible ideas become very attractive. And I get that. Creativity is about a human connect, and this human connect is easily available to you. But what of creating something new? This leads to my next point. That's the journey of creativity. Now, this is possibly the most pretentious sounding point I've ever written in my life, and it sounds like a Deepak Chopra novel. That doesn't make me very happy. But it's an aspect many people forget exists. Okay, I'm going to ask you a question. Raise your hands as it applies to you. How many of you run blogs? SoundClouds, DeviantArt, no, just keep them up. Blogs, SoundClouds, DeviantArt accounts, YouTube channels, anywhere you go ahead and create something that's put ahead for perusal of your peer group and anyone who can Google your name. How many of you create actively? I can see you there. Right, that's a large chunk. The rest of you consume. Right? It's a chain. We all create. There's a consumer, there's a producer. It's something that connects all of us. Now, all creators are innately exhibitionists. Don't deny that. You go ahead and create because you want opinions on it. Why? The concept of creativity depends a lot on perception. Why do you create? You have a certain perception of something you observe and you go ahead and give it shape. You give it a body. When you've done it, you chased your inspiration and you managed to create something out of it. You want opinions on it. Now, in a utopian world, these opinions would validate your art by giving it positive criticism and thus would validate your perception. However, in a utopian world, I'd be about 30 degrees lighter, that much lighter. Now, the problem is that this is positive reinforcement gone wrong. You create something and you get extremely good reviews on it. The next piece you create is very similar to what you created earlier. Why? Because we like social validation. And we like social validation a lot and we like getting the most out of what we create. I know that the first time they invited me to speak here, my first reaction was to Google, does giving a TEDx talk include your college app? Because it's an inherent example of what happens. You want the most out of what you create. But the problem here is, you think you found a niche. And well, a niche is supposedly a good thing. Find what you love and let it kill you. Bukowski said that. You find something you're good at and you continue to do. But there's a difference between a niche and a block. A niche unto itself grows with you and evolves with you. You mold the niche itself and you mold yourself with the niche because you have found an area that matches your perception. However, when you focus solely on social validation in terms of what you create, it's a block because that develops from what others perceive and what others understand from your heart. This is where the journey of creativity is so important. When you create, you put bits and pieces of yourself into what you create. As you create, you develop an idea. You chase an inspiration, you pin it down, and you give your perception of that inspiration a body. As you do so, you learn more about your thought process. As you push yourself out of your comfort zone as you create, you realize that you have insane creative capacity within you. You realize that the more you explore your own mind and the more you try to push yourself away from what you have created before, the more your mind will expand. You're infinite in the amount you can create and the capacity of perception you have. The journey itself is the most important bit. As idealistic as it sounds, you learn as you create, and that is the most important bit of creating. Your perception matters first. What if I tell you it's okay for you, and not only is it okay but important for you to be happy with what you create more than what somebody else says? What you create is you. It is more than the likes on your blog post. It is more than the hits on your YouTube video. It is more than whatever social validation you require. Is that important? Yes, I will not deny that. But knowing what you create is just as important. Now, this leads to a question which should have been answered right in the beginning, but I wanted to build a case for it. Why? Why do we create? What have I been jabbering about for the past 3 minutes or so? Why are we sitting here talking about the importance of creativity? Now, as I mentioned before, creativity is perception. It is communication. You take your ideas, you give them shape, and you give it to the world to understand. However, creativity, as everything in the world, has a micro and a macro concept. Step 1 is communication, yes, but a parallel step is crystallization. This comes to my fourth point, the goal of identity. Now, at the age you're at, I'm at, mentally some other people are at, you're caught in a flux, right? You're caught in a flux where you are confused because there is a lot going on. And yes, I'm talking about puberty, and you can laugh about it, it's fine. But in this flux, you are also under immense pressure. What pressure are we talking about here? After years of being told specifically that you can't make years and years, the fear of disillusionment, the fear of failure, the fear of disapproval has been ingrained into you. You're scared of doing something wrong, and hence you will not do anything because you're scared it's going to be wrong. What does this lead to? It leads to a planet population. People who are so scared to do something different that they go ahead and allow themselves to be pulled and pushed and crushed into something standardized. Now, does that sound insidious and paranoid? It does. I know it does. But what can you, what can I, what can we do to change that? We can be. Now, when you create, what you do is you take your perception that defines the individual that you are and you crystallize it. You give yourself an opportunity to be systematically ingrained into everything you do. When you infuse creativity in every single thing you do, in every single way you do it, what you're doing is creating the person you are. Imagine yourself as a tiny boat in a choppy sea. What does creativity do? Creativity supports you, it surrounds you, it anchors you to the person you are and prevents you from becoming just another standardized person. It protects you from capsizing. What creativity does is it stops you from becoming a cookie cutter student, who becomes a cookie cutter functional adult, who becomes a cookie cutter propagator of his cookie cutter student. You could be a millionaire in the next 10 years, but if your only identity revolves around, hey, I'm a millionaire, are you really anything? Are you worth something beyond your net worth in a bank? Do you turn and look into your own mind and find yourself being entertained by what you think? Do you bore yourself? Can you sit alone in a room and be happy as a person if you don't create? Creativity is inherently human. Creativity is important, and creativity makes us the people we are. It is a way of communication. It is a way of becoming a person. I can't inspire you because you all are the inspirations to you. And the only people who can go ahead and take the potential of this inspiration waiting to happen, kickstart it off by creating every single day in whatever capacity you can. Thank you.
Thank you, Pandit. We will now have a half-hour break for lunch. Students in the ISC and IBDP kindly move the room just outside the hall to my left. Also, please note that for every member in the audience, it is mandatory that you come back and take your seats within the next half hour, as you're not allowed to leave this auditorium until the entire event is completed. We have 2 more speakers, and as of now, we will now break for